Hi, I'm Mike Glenn, and I am the president and founder of the Engaged Church Network. We work with local pastors and churches in the Middle Tennessee area, helping them understand their opportunities and challenges in their own community, helping them identify and train leaders to meet these new challenges that are part of our new situation here. It's a lot of fun and it's a lot of challenges. And for me, if you're wired like I am, challenge and fun usually go in the same sentence. You've heard me talk a lot about the First Reformation gives the word back to the people, the Bible back to the people. The Second Reformation is giving ministry back to the people. And that is the opportunities now, the training, the skill sets that our congregation have, and the ability now in our world because of things like the internet and on, for people to have world-impacting, kingdom celebrating kind of ministries. And I'm kind of struggling because the ministry we're talking about today is that kind of ministry. So when you ask yourself, what can I as a layperson do? What can one person do? Well, the answer is, well, quite a lot. Our guest today is a friend of mine, Steve Moore. Steve has been in the country music business and the music business in the Nashville area for let's just say a long time, promoting concerts and all of that. Went to Guatemala on a mission trip, and everything changed. So, Steve, welcome to the podcast. Glad you're here. I'm going to let you pick the story up from there. You go to Guatemala, you're invited by a pastor friend, and you go, this is a mission trip, you're going to go a week and come back and do your thing again. What happens?
Well, the interesting thing about that trip, the way it started in church, and it was Missions Day. You know, they have certain people, they're highlighting mission families, and I'm thinking to myself, why would you take your kids to those places? You know, honestly has those thoughts that day. And I remember then the next segment talking about this church in Guatemala City that was really struggling with trying to teach the kids that live there, have a place for them to go to school, and they really was trying to build a school. And so, you know, church ended. Next thing I know, I was down there signing up. I never had really plans to do anything. I can't say that I was, you know, had it all figured out. I didn't have really anything figured out. But I ended up going, and it was Memorial Day weekend that week, 1998. And, you know, for me, it was looking back, really after, you know, many times looking back, it was an epiphany for me and a change in my whole life, perspective on everything. I just never really anticipated what was going to happen and what God did to me on that trip.
So what did happen?
Well, 1998 was actually only 2 years beyond the Civil War. Guatemala had been in a civil war for 30 years. And so most of the indigenous and normal Latinos, Guatemalans, were living out into the country, but the guerrillas, as cruel as that all was, they were moving into the cities. And so they moved into these barrios up in the mountains. They don't own anything. They're just, they're squatting the whole. And so the area that the church is located in is called Zone 18. It's like a little sector of the city. It's called the Shalom Baptist Church. And Pastor Alvaro had pastored a lot of these families and these kids in the barrios. And so when we got there, the church is in an okay place, but he took us into this area called Paradise, which is what they call the area they lived in, which is anything but paradise. And the depravity that they lived in and the environment that they lived in was just heartbreaking to me. And what I saw was a genuine joy in some of these people's lives when they had absolutely nothing. And what I experienced there was something I'd never experienced before in my whole life. I felt God's presence like I'd never felt before. I never felt it in church. I never felt it in prayer. I never felt it anywhere. And he basically broke my heart for those kids in that mission. And, I look back on it, the journey that I've made over the last 25, 6 years, what I started doing was not what God sent me. I ended up doing something else. But so it was just an epiphany for me that way. And I remember thinking about, man, this is one of the best kept secrets in church. I mean, it seems like if everybody knew what I felt,
Yeah.
everybody would be coming to wherever they go. I mean,
Right.
there's many places to go, even if you go across town.
Right.
You can feel it. And it just struck me that way. So that was the beginning of a journey that's lasted, 25, 26 years of ministry there for those kids.
Okay. Now, I am talking to you from the vantage point of having seen this ministry for the 25 years or so. So I kind of know where this story goes. But take me back to those first moments. You got a heart that is broken for these kids. You know you got to do something, but you don't know what. You don't know how. You're in the music business in Nashville. So, we've talked about this before. There was nothing in your background or experience that trained you for what God called you to do.
100%. Yeah, I was probably the least trained person to do anything. I always say, I don't know if there's anything more dumber than being a concert promoter, but, we started building the school and finished the school. It took us a year or so, but we finished it, 2 or 3 floors. And, of course, then the kids started coming, and then they needed clothes and shoes and books and that sort of thing.
Right.
We started doing that. The church that I was working with in Franklin was supporting for a while, and then one Sunday got the word that they were done with Guatemala and they were moving on to something else. And I'm going, man, how could you be done with Guatemala?
We just started.
Started. And so that was really an interesting time for me to figure out what to do. But, after a few days of, it was just like, okay, you're finished. I'm not finished. And God's not finished. So that was when I officially formed the foundation, because I didn't have a foundation. I had not set out to have a foundation, but that compelled me to create a foundation, mainly to receive help and recipients of money, so I could send it to Guatemala officially.
Which is the Shalom Foundation.
With the Shalom Foundation, which is named after the church. That's still there, of course. Pastor Alvaro is still there. And so we started that in 2001 or 2000, one there somewhere. And so that journey kept going, with the kids. And then when you find out about the kids, you find out who they are, where they live. Then you go there, then you see what they're living in, which is just heartbreaking again. So then, of course, Americans want to always do something, build something. So we started building houses for them, building homes. And that went for a little while. And, that's good. We were there building a home one trip, and this lady brought this little four-year-old up to us. There was a bunch of us there across the street, and she was just crying and crying and crying. She lifted up her blouse and was a scar, and she started in Spanish trying to tell that she got, shot in a La Tienda, a store robbery. Well, obviously we're all concerned. We didn't know if she was having pain then. I guess she was having pain. So we're trying to figure out what's going on. So we figured out that she had been shot, looked at the x-rays, and the bullet was still lodged in her upper thigh, lower groin area. And one of the persons on our trip said, well, that's not good. She won't survive it. We hustled and made arrangements to bring her to Nashville and to get her operated on, because I didn't know anything about that either,
Right.
especially in Guatemala. So we brought her to town, and a lot of our friends in music business and just business friends, church, everybody just loved on her, and we got her a surgery. Dr. Mac Baxter, great surgeon in town, operated on her and took out a .22 caliber, out of her leg. And just loved on her, and it just affected so many people around us here in Brentwood and Franklin. I mean, it moved a lot of people.
Yeah, when you put a name and a face on the need.
100% right. So little Anna was her name, Anna Rios. So Anna was just so sweet, and everybody loved on her. And I remember we took her. Some people took her to lunch, and she didn't eat anything. She hadn't eaten in days. Then come to find out, she had a toothache. Well, took her to a dentist. Not only did she have a toothache, she had 4 abscess teeth. So never cried about it.
Yeah.
Just didn't eat. Stuff like that. So, that trip was just a fabulous trip. Great experience for her. Took her back to Guatemala reluctantly. I'd just rather keep her, but I couldn't do that. But so we got her back home, and then God placed in my heart this question. So what happens to the rest of them? What happens to little girls?
That's the sneaky thing about God.
I'm telling you.
You do one.
I was done. I did my good deed. Little Anna's back home. She's good. Teeth fixed.
Yeah.
Surgery. No. It started to eat on me. Like, what happens to the rest of them that don't run into a Steve or a Gringo or another person to help them? And, the answer was not good. They live with it or they die with it. Because Guatemala had a failed, and still does, a failed health system, particularly for the lower socioeconomic strata that we were dealing with. And so that was the beginning of the next journey that I began working on, and how things started to play together. And it's non-coincidental how God put all this stuff together. About the same time, Kix Brooks, who's one of my friends and clients, said more Monroe Children's is doing a festival, and they need some help with the stage, and you need to go down there and help them. He's on the board. Right. And I said, yes, sir, I'll be happy to do that. So was happy to do that, went and worked with a lot of the folks at the Children's Hospital at Monroe Carroll. And through that process, I met some surgeons and doctors and people that worked at the hospital. So we started talking about Guatemala and the need there, and the conversations progressed that, we do some trips. We do them in Sub-Sahara, but we're not doing that anymore. But we might be interested in doing Guatemala. It's easy to get to. So Dr. John Brock, who was head of surgery there, was interested and said, well, we'd be interested in put together a team, maybe a urology team, if you could find us patients, a place to work and all that. Well, to me, it's really simple. Like in the concert business, you go out and rent a hall and put up a stage, and Kick shows up and Ronnie, and they play.
And that's it.
So I liken it to that.
Same thing. We're going to have surgeons show up. We're going to do operations.
That's exactly right. So I go down there and I find the Guatemalan Pediatric Association group, and they have a little makeshift building, and they do surgeries in it. But I mean, it's not anything like what we have today, but it was okay. So anyway, so they came and did a few trips, and that worked out good for a year. And second year, they were there, and I think it was still urology or orthopedics. I'm not sure, but I had borrowed a heart monitor from the Rotary, and I met this gentleman named Tacono, and he turned out he ended up being a dear, dear friend of mine over the years. And Tacona loaned me this heart monitor, brand new. They borrowed it too. They borrowed it and loaned it to me. And so after the second day, they would get there to the hospital to use the heart monitor. Where's the heart monitor? Gone. Somebody stole the heart monitor. So there's another thing. So God said, well, you need your own place. You can lock the door. My own place, my own hospital.
Yeah.
Well, you need to get our own hospital so we can take care of our equipment and take care of our kids, and we don't have to depend on other people. So that started, the next journey, the next phase of this journey. And what was interesting about it is that I found we looked around, but I was leaving Guatemala one time from that journey, and I said, well, I'm just going to look online myself. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting in the Delta, ready there, getting on the plane, and I found this hospital for sale and got into it when I got back to the States. And yes, it's for sale. The lady lives in Antigua, up in the middle of the country, and discovered that her mother was a gynecologist and opened a maternity ward in there in 1954. And she was one of the first Mayan females that got certified in Guatemala. But she'd since passed. The hospital had been closed for years, mm-hmm. but was delighted that we would use it for children. Mm-hmm. So we made a deal, and we closed on. Well, we didn't close it. We made a deal to buy it. We had the money; they wouldn't sell it. But through the bureaucracy, we couldn't take possession of it for almost 2 years. Mm. We worked through the mm-hmm. bureaucracy to try to get a control of the hospital, so we could go to work on it. But so that took almost 2 years. So once we finally got the hospital, it only took another 4 years to get it renovated and open and standard for, somewhat standard for U.S. standards. And so after 6.5 years, and I'd probably quit, I don't know, about 150 times I had quit. But I didn't leave, I just quit.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But we kept going, and I remember Tommy Sanders, who I think a dear friend and mentor, that always tell me, Steve, if it was easy down here, everybody'd be doing it.
Yeah.
And they're not. Matter of fact, nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
And so, but we finally opened on 2011. Dr. Brock brought a team down and did our first surgery team with a urology team. And it, that's been 14 years ago.
Now what's the church doing? What's the surgery center doing?
Well, and we've been, since then, we are up to 18 teams a year. We do every discipline except neurology and cardiology, mainly because we don't have the ICU or specialty. And last November, we celebrated a milestone of hitting 10,000 surgeries. And really it's 13 years, but we lost 2 years in COVID, so really it's only about 11, 12 years. But so that was a big milestone for the hospital. And we've since added I've added 3 dental suites. So we do, and I have a full-time dentist. So we do dental work for that group of people full-time, 4 days a week. And so those patients are nonstop. Mm-hmm. So that's it's just been a unbelievable journey of, and plus, it's always been a ministry. It's still a ministry. We have full-time chaplain, pastor that works for us there, mm-hmm. and works with the families and understands try to get them to understand why we're there. Mm-hmm. We're here to provide hope and healing, but we're here because Jesus sent us.
The gospel, that's right.
The gospel. Mm-hmm. And then, so we provide them with materials and Bibles and stuff that we get generously donated through Lifeway. And so we just try not to ever get away from the essence of what brought us there. Mm-hmm. And so that's, that's just one of those things that I still don't know. Looking back, I don't know how. I do know how. I don't know who, and I know how. I just don't know why me. That's mainly the question. Why me? But
what would the Steve now tell the Steve who was beginning that process?
Well, I would say, and to anyone, I would say, if you haven't experienced a trip with some believers and for church, or please just don't leave this earth without doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it. It'll bring more fulfillment than you can ever imagine.
Right.
I mean, I have had, a really, for me, where I come from, I had an extraordinary time in life working with the great artists and that I've got to do here, and looking back on all the things that I've got to do, and nothing compares to it. Nothing compares to it.
Well, anybody that knows you understands that if we spend more than 10 minutes talking to you, you're going to get shalom in that conversation somehow, which is interesting, again, considering the career you have had in the music industry. I mean, some of these concerts that we celebrate on YouTube as being groundbreaking, you were there. Some of these artists, and you were there, and the thing that gives you the most joy is this hospital in Guatemala.
Yeah, and then it's a constant reminder every time I go down there, and not only the work, the children, the staff that I have is just, it's indescribable. Young people, and it's like an extended family to me. We have 30 employees. They're really not employees; they're partners, they're associates, they're colleagues, and they're young. They're all young people, and primarily female. Thank God. And they work harder. You can depend on them to show up.
Show up. Yeah, great. Yeah.
And so I mean, it's just an amazing thing for anybody that would want to experience it. We've had, and in our teams, we have different specialties bring different levels of numbers. Sometimes they bring family members, a lot of young people, some of them in college. We've had people, I've had several experiences. Young people, they're majoring in business. They leave, they're changing their major. Yeah. They're changing their major to medical, nursing, I mean, they want to use their
part
skill,
of the world,
be part
to change
of that.
the world.
Yeah. And so that's encouraging to be that kind of experience, have that kind of experience, and at the same time, sometimes it's dreadful when we've had people come and just break down because of it's heartache.
The need. Yeah,
the need.
It's just overwhelming.
And, my comment was, God didn't send you down here to save thousands. You just one. Yeah. Yeah. So anybody that goes, you're not called to change the world. Yeah. You're just called to do something.
That one. And the old starfish story made a difference to that starfish.
100%.
That I threw him back, yeah.
I mean, and I've said many times, and it sounds cliche, and I guess it is, but everybody can do something. Okay. Everybody can do something. And I too believe that God has called everybody to do something. It's just if you want to listen to it or you don't.
Yeah. Well, part of what we learn in following Christ, we learn only in obedience.
Right. That's exactly
some of the lessons you have learned about God's goodness and faithfulness and the way He orchestrates things, you've learned only because you walk through the next door.
Right. I mean, I'm not here to toot my horn about it. I can't tell you that I was onward Christian soldier marching through the. I'm not going to say that because it's not all been easy. Yeah. I mean, so you struggle. You struggle. It's all a struggle. The money, the people, the process, the everything. It's just.
Waiting 2 years for the government to give you permission to build a hospital.
I know. It's just, and it seems like the negative spiritual forces that we know about is threw up every block, every wall, every hindrance. And it will happen to you. I promise you it will happen. And, just got to the point when hopefully in my faith there, it's, it was a advanced treatment of faith, because you learn a lot in that period, because I wasn't really prepared for it. But you get prepared pretty quick when you stay in the book, and you have to kind of keep going.
Yeah.
And
well, like our friend Tommy says, if it was easy,
100%.
everybody be doing it.
That's right.
So it's not.
Yeah.
So how do people find out about your work, the foundation? ShalomFoundation.org.
Yeah, it's there, and there's a Spanish version too if you'd like that. But Central more. But the ShalomFoundation.org is probably the easiest, and we'd welcome anyone who wanted to take a trip. We'd welcome anybody who wants to go and learn about
part of that.
That particular mission. And, and being a pastor you've been and supporting missions, there's a shoe size for everybody.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to go, you can build here, go there, do whatever. And I'm not everybody's going to be called to Guatemala, but there's a place to go. There's always something to do. And I think God honors all that, no matter how deep or heavy you get into it. I think God honors it.
You have honored us by being here, Steve. As you can see, while talking to Steve, and the story of the Shalom Foundation and the Shalom Hospital is one of my favorite stories. Like many of you, Steve was just a guy who went to church, who went on a mission trip, and was overwhelmed by the burden and the need that he saw, and just walked through the next door. That next door went from a little house where we built a school, to building houses, to taking care of the kids, to bringing a child up here for surgery, to now the hospital there that has done thousands and thousands of surgeries. And this all started in the pew of a local church. God wants you to be part of what he's doing in redeeming his broken world. He's Steve Moore. Find out more about his work in Guatemala at the ShalomFoundation.org. I'm Mike Glenn. Thanks for being part of our podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Engaged Church Network podcast. We exist to train healthy and skilled leaders for congregations throughout Middle Tennessee. If today's episode helped you, share it with a fellow leader. And don't forget to visit EngageChurchNetwork.com for more ways to grow.